to the Fantasy Football Podcast Extraordinaire with a lot less fantasy football and more playoffs. I am one of your hosts. I am Jim. On the other side of the screen is Kyle. How you doing, Kyle?
Pretty good. Obviously, my team got bounced from the playoffs this week, so that's a little bit sad. But life's good in general. Had a good weekend. I got to watch some good playoff games and some bad ones. How about you?
A little bit of the same. I try to catch every game, obviously, for the podcast. I wanted to at least have like a general idea. I don't think I finished most of them, but yeah, some good football, some pretty bad football. Yeah, we'll get to that later. But overall, great weekend. My first time experiencing a first round bye, so it was nice kind of watching everyone else kind of duke it out, and the Lions are just kind of sitting there waiting to see who they play. Never felt that in my life before, so I'll take that as the big positive on the week.
Is that the first time they've ever had a bye?
We've won one playoff game up until last year.
Ever? Really?
I think if they had a bye, it would have been in 91 or 2, whatever that playoff season would have fallen under, because they were the second best record with the Washington Redskins, I think, but they might have been the number 3 record. So they could have had a bye that year, but I don't actually. They must have had a bye because they played the Cowboys, beat the Cowboys as their one playoff win. We're in the championship game. So theoretically they would have had a bye. So my being able to understand what I'm seeing part of my life, they've never done it.
Sure, yeah.
I was 4 years old.
That's fair, yeah. Yeah, Packers have had plenty of them. They never seem to do us any favors, so maybe they'll treat you more kindly than they did for us.
I hope so.
They are harder to get now, too. Only two teams, I guess, get them instead of 4 like it always used to be.
Yeah, it's the prized possession now. Everyone wants it.
It's a pretty big deal, that number 1 spot. But yeah, I guess we'll just jump in and we'll talk about the match from last week, because that was our bet for last week too, so we'll kind of roll right into it.
Right on.
So we'll do the AFC first. We had the Chiefs on bye. Obviously, they didn't have to play. So then we had the Bills versus the Broncos. For this one, we both picked the Bills. Obviously, that was a good bet. The Broncos got crushed. Yeah, this was the one I wound up playing darts during. Actually, darts went pretty fast this week, so I was done before the Packer game, or right when the Packer game was starting. So it actually worked out pretty well. But this one was on. I remember watching the very beginning, and I just saw Bo Nix throw that bomb pass to the end zone. I was like, oh, fuck, this might actually be a game. I'm curious. And then every time I look at the screen, I'm like, oh, no. Bills got some points. Broncos got nothing. Yep, Bills got some more points. Broncos got nothing. Bills got some more points. Broncos got nothing. And, yeah, it was a blowout. Josh Allen and the Bills, they're a different caliber of team than the Broncos are. Nothing against the Broncos. They way exceeded their expectations this year. The term playing with house money gets thrown around fairly often with playoff teams like this, but that's what they were doing. They had to have been happy to be there and even play a game, so they can't be too upset getting bounced by a juggernaut like the Bills are looking like right now.
Yeah, it's Bo mania there, It was it ran strong for a while, and yeah, I think anyone in that position as a team, even with the Lions last year, I was kind of in that same boat where it's yeah, we could make it, but I'm just gonna be happy to see successful playoff games and a win. I think that's kind of where the Denver Broncos were kind of coming into it, at least their fans. We were just thinking hey, if we can come out here, look respectable and put up a good fight, that's going to feel really good for next year. So I'm sure losing like they did isn't the best, but the Bills can do that to any team in the NFL, even, competent teams. So I don't think it has anything to do with them being a bad team. It was just, they played a team that's been in the playoffs for 5+ years probably in a row, and they're ready to try to cement themselves on top of the football. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but they're trying to win a Lombardi, and they've had the experience of it. So those type of teams just kind of destroy lesser opponents in the playoffs, because they're running on all cylinders. They know what to expect. They know what they're doing. They're just a well-tuned team, and the Broncos just couldn't overcome that. They have too much inexperience at big positions, obviously quarterback being the biggest. And I don't think Nick's even played over that bad, right? I think they just kind of the defense just couldn't slow down Josh Allen, and Cook was kind of going off too. When Cook's going off, they're pretty much unstoppable. So yeah, I think they should be pretty happy. They got a good situation with Bo Nix going into next year, and I think it'll be fun to see. I think they were a season ahead of where I think everyone expected them to be. So next year, their expectations will be up a little bit higher. But if they can get the right pieces over there, maybe they won't be. I don't think a Super Bowl contender, but maybe winning a playoff game or two.
Yeah, and they're in a rough division. I mean,
Yeah, that's the
it
big
sucks
deal.
for everyone in that division that the Chiefs are there. It's so hard to get a top 4 spot. You almost have to get in on the wild card until something happens with them.
I gotta imagine the Chiefs are probably 6 or 7 years in a row winning it.
Yeah, I mean they've just
Gotta be so
absolutely
ridiculous.
dominated that division.
I mean, the only dominance we've seen like that has been the Patriots in the recent history.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, they're the next dynasty, so it's a hard division for them. But I mean, they played them twice, and they actually beat them the second time, but it was against the Chiefs backups, so I kind of scratched that. But they almost nicked them the first time they played too. That was
Oh, that's right. I forgot about they played early in the season. Yeah.
Did they block a field goal, or they mismanaged the field goal at the end of the game to lose it, or they just missed it? I can't remember.
I think he got blocked or something.
Yeah,
I know they had a loss like that, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the team that they did it against.
Yeah, so they were real close to beating them. And I mean, the Broncos too, they're still paying Russell Wilson. They were paying Russell Wilson like $40 million a year this last year. They probably still have to pay him a little bit again this next year, but it probably won't be as much. And after that, he's probably off the books, and they can kind of move on and really build something. So Broncos fans should be happy. But yeah, we both picked the Bills in that one, so we're currently tied on the bets. The next matchup, we had the Ravens versus the Steelers. So you took the Steelers on this one. I was kind of a shocking pick. Maybe you're just trying to didn't want to pick the favorite in every single one, but this one, the Ravens killed them. I mean, this was also a game that was not close. Ravens looked fantastic. They looked like one of the best teams in the NFL. Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs in the AFC. Those are 3 really good teams. And we got next week we'll have Ravens. Well, we'll talk about that later. But Steelers once again. They made the playoffs, squeaked in there, got bounced in the first round. This has been a thing for like 6 years straight for them. They always get there, but they don't. Once they get there, they never seem like they belong. Granted, they always kind of squeak in on the bottom, so they always have to play one of the best teams, and they can't go toe to toe with them there. I feel kind of bad for Steelers fans, but not that bad because I mean it's still good to be in the playoffs perennially. I mean, just always in the playoffs.
They're kind of like that spot you don't want to be in the NBA. It's not as harsh in the NFL, but it's like you're not good enough to get a top pick. You're not bad enough to get, or you're not good enough to win and get into the playoffs, but you're not bad enough to get the top picks to actually get a game changer, which for the most part, quarterbacks are game changers, but you can kind of get them everywhere in the NFL draft. It's a lot harder in the NBA. Like you need like a top 5 pick normally to get these guys. So they're kind of in that area right now where it's like they just need to find a quarterback. They're never going to get better than probably like a playoff win a season with the roster they have. Like incredible defense. JJ Watt is going to be a perennial like defensive player of the year candidate. You have a lot of these pieces, but until you have a good quarterback, it's just not going to all come together. And it doesn't help either that their offensive line's been kind of mismanaged, I think, and just had a lot of ups and downs over the years. Haven't really been able to get a consistent unit since really the Le'Veon Bell, like early Le'Veon Bell days, the last time they really had a dominant offensive line. So it's hard to keep a quarterback upright back there too. And when you're trying to make it work with Justin Fields, who is a cast off from the Bears, who I think he played okay early in the year, but it was pretty obvious that they limited the offense around him. And then you had Wilson, who had a kind of like a flash in the pan early on, but I think he kind of came back down to earth by the end of the season. And that's just like, you see the limitations at that point. They just don't have enough on the offense side of the ball to put games away or get up enough points to keep up with some of these better teams and better offenses, because your defense can only go so far when you're playing against the likes of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Mahomes.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of akin to what the Packers. I mean, with the Packers of the season, because they beat all the teams they should have beat, but every time they ran up against the better teams, they couldn't really beat them this year. Other than I think they did beat the Ravens earlier this year, but it's a divisional game, so that shit kind of happens. But yeah, their defense is fantastic, so they can kind of be in almost any game because they're never just going to give it away. But like you said, once you run into the really good offenses, you can't slow them down enough to keep up. So
Right. The game favors the
Yeah.
offense. So like you eventually have to score points. I know it's like, oh, you gotta score more points to win, but like, yeah, there's like literally a certain number of points you pretty much need to compete against the highest end teams in the NFL right now,
Hmm.
just because of how dominant offensive play is, because all the rules favor it. So I mean, I think there's multiple teams that are scoring like 30 points a game on the season. Like that wasn't heard of 15, 20 years ago. It was like 26 was like the highest point totals.
I'm curious if I heard rumblings again about Tomlin losing his job. I doubt it happens, but it seems like one of those things where it could just be time for a change, maybe for them. Just
Kind of reminds me of Andy Reid back in
yeah, it happens.
Philadelphia, where it's just like we know we have a great coach, we know we have a really good team, but maybe that team's ran its course because like after they had McNabb get old, they really couldn't replace him. They had Vic for like that 1 year, but then that fell off afterwards. And then that I don't was Vic, yeah, Vic was Andy Reid, and then that was just kind of that point where they're like, well, if we can't get this top quarterback to really set this team up to be, a franchise team for the next 10 years, like, why don't we just move on with a more younger coach and try something new? And
Hmm.
it obviously worked out best for everybody, but yeah, that might be where we're heading with Tomlin, especially if this happens again. Like, they have to find a quarterback, I think, in the next year or two, and then have some like legitimate playoff success for him to keep his job. It's coming up because it's legitimate at this point. Like he hasn't
Yeah,
really performed. I mean, yeah, it's great to have a winning record for how many years, whatever. It does prove like there's a level of competence there, but he also had Le'Veon Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown at their peak and couldn't make it. So he's done it with. He's not been able to do it with talent and without. So sometimes you gotta point the finger somewhere at him.
yeah. And like you said, it happened with Andy Reid. McCarthy kind of did the same thing. I mean,
Sure.
he was a great coach for the Packers. He was one of the most winning coaches in the NFL at the time. But Packers were like, we had a lot of early round playoff busts, and then that 1 year we didn't make the playoffs, and they're like, you know what? Let's just part ways. You're a good coach. Someone else will hire you. You'll be good there. But we just need to move on. It's better for everybody. And when they moved on, that was kind of Aaron Rodgers' resurgence. He kind of came back, won a couple more MVPs. It was good for the Packers. McCarthy wound up going to the Cowboys, and he was 12-4, 2 seasons in a row.
You had some
I
good
mean,
seasons there, yeah.
he had really good seasons. His playoff woes kind of continued, but I can't say it was bad for anyone involved, in all honesty. So
It's happened a lot in history. I mean, there is a lot of big time coaches like that. I don't know if you remember Marty Schottenheimer, but he went 14-2 with the Chargers 1 year, and they fired him because they had like 3 straight years of being like top 5 offense and defense. At least 1 or 2 seasons where they were like both sides of the ball. They were just crazy. It was LaDainian Tomlinson. I think it was Rivers at the time, but Drew Brees was one of the years when Drew Brees had his like resurgence year with the Chargers, his first really good year. Sean Merriman, Antonio Cromartie, they just had like tons of studs, almost kind of like what the Lions are right now. There's just like studs all over their team, but they could just never make it to the Super Bowl. And it was like, we went 14-2, the best team in the league by far, but they lost like to a field goal, and he got canned the next game. And he was considered like a legendary coach. So eventually it's just the results need to come.
yeah. So I'm curious what happens with that. I feel like the Steelers will probably just wind up keeping him because I don't know who else they hire
He's the
right
third
now.
coach in their history, so it's not like they move on any
True.
frequently.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that have to happen before they even really consider it.
I'm sure they would need to get. Yeah, they'd want somebody like maybe if Ben Johnson went down there and said, "Hey, I want this job," maybe they'd move on for him. I
bet
can't
you
think of
Ben
any other
Johnson would pull
names
something
that
like that.
they would let him go for that are out there right now.
Yeah, it'd have to be like they feel like this is the next like top coach. I don't think it would have to. It couldn't be like a retread. It couldn't be like Bill
Yeah.
Belichick. I think they'd just be like, yeah, we're fine. I
Mhm.
think they need just someone that they know can be 38, 43 years old or something, looks like the top candidate like Ben Johnson, take the job, and then it's like, oh, we got another 15-year-old or 15-year worth of like coaching, like elite
Yeah.
coaching. Yeah, that's the Pittsburgh way.
So yeah, we'll see. Next match we had Texans versus the Chargers. So we both took the Chargers in this one, and we were both wrong. This was the first a pretty big embarrassment of the playoffs, in my opinion. Yeah, Justin Herbert, man, he looked awful. That was an embarrassing game for him.
Oh, yeah.
I feel kind of bad. This dude just can't get anything done in the playoffs. I mean, like we said, the Chargers are they were kind of in a rebuild year, so I'm sure they're still happy to be in the playoffs. But the Texans hadn't looked that great all year, and really, I mean, Justin Herbert just kind of gave that game away. He was throwing terribly. He was throwing interceptions. I believe he threw a pick six in there. I mean, it looked bad. It was an extremely one-sided score at the end of the game. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I mean, they got their asses kicked by the Texans, and they were a favorite in this game, even being the wild card team. Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, Texans did look good. I'll give them that. Their offense looked surprisingly good against the Chargers D, but I think it mostly just came down to Justin Herbert. He played extremely poorly. You're not going to win playoff games if your quarterback plays like that. And we have a couple more of those guys coming up when we talk about the NFC, but you're not going to win games playing like that. And hopefully he gets better because he's had such good stretches throughout the years, and just even this year he was pretty good. I mean, I think he only threw like 2 or 3 interceptions all season. The team didn't pass that much, but
he
more than doubled that in a single playoff game. It's like, dude, you can't do that. Like, I get it, you get down, so you start pushing it more, but yeah, it was bad.
Well, we'll talk about another quarterback, a little bit later, but I think at some point there's like nerves, and then like there's just some guys that have it and some that don't, and then I'm sure Herbert can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and I'm sure he can go on a great, streak, but like this is now kind of becoming a history thing with him, like yeah, he doesn't have the greatest talent around him, but he's performed well most of the season, so there's no reason why he can't do it in the playoffs. Maybe the opponent's a little better, but I mean, like you said, the Texans haven't been great this year. Their defense has been their, best part of their team, but they've been struggling to beat, lesser opponents. Like they're not a team that's been dominating or anything, and they came out in this game and just crushed them, especially on the defense side. Well, they had crazy pressure. They were really jamming the receivers. The other thing I think that was kind of crazy is that Lad McConkey had 197 yards on 9 catches, and like the rest of the offensive skill positions had like 50 yards receiving or 30. Yeah. It was like something ridiculous like that. So that might be kind of showing you, if you have only like one player, it might be hard to get the ball to the other ones because they just don't have a lot of talent. I mean, Quentin Johnston in that game was awful. Like he was just like, you could see that there is a talent problem there too, so better competition. The Texans have really good corners, so like if they're playing against an incompetent receiver, they're probably gonna eat him alive. So I don't know if he had a lot of open opportunities too. But yeah, it was a surprising game for me. I did not expect the Texans to come out here and just kind of dominate. We both talked about how much we loved Herbert going into this game, and then obviously Jim Harbaugh. And sometimes it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how well you coach. If your quarterback plays that bad, you're not going to win.
Yeah. I mean, that was the first upset of this bunch. So yeah, we both got that wrong. So currently, I'm up 1 on you on our current games we've gone through. But then we'll jump over to the NFC. So the first match we had the Eagles versus the Packers. So you took the Eagles. I actually took the Packers. Packers lost. Pretty akin to the last game we just talked about. Quarterback Jordan Love played like shit, just absolute garbage. He gave that game away. Our defense was playing stellar, in my opinion. They didn't get any turnovers, but I mean, Jalen Hurts couldn't do anything. Saquon didn't get a lot done. He got his decent chunk of work, but they did a pretty good job bottling him up. I mean, I will say, like, the start of the game, there was that kickoff. There was helmet to helmet. Dude fumbles it. Whatever, don't call the helmet to helmet. It looked like Nixon had also recovered the ball. Whatever, they gave it to the Eagles. And the Eagles scored a touchdown right away in like the first minute of the game because they got the ball on the 20-yard line. But outside of that, the Packers D held them to 3 points for the rest of the half, and our offense just could not do anything. Josh Jacobs had some really good runs. He looked fantastic, but yeah, Jordan Love just kept turning the ball over. I think he turned it over twice in the first half. On top of that opening kickoff turnovers, those 3 turnovers in the first half. And we were shockingly only down 10-0 coming into the second half. We did get a little production in the second half, but not nearly enough. And then Jordan Love turned it over again. So I believe he threw 3 picks. I don't think it was 4.
Yeah, it's 3. I'm looking at it right now.
Was it 3? Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it was a bad performance. You can't Same exact thing. I mean, if you're gonna if the game was close, I would have been pretty pissed off about that opening kickoff call. But we got our asses kicked so bad. It's like it didn't even it really didn't matter at the end of the day. If we would have lost by 3 and they scored 7 on that kickoff, where I think the Packers recovered it, the announcers thought the Packers recovered it. It certainly looked from all camera angles I saw like dude got his hands back around it and he's on the ground, so that should have been it. But when your quarterback comes out and just gives the ball away 3 more times after that, you're cooked anyway. So it was disappointing. It was very disappointing. I mean, the Packers kind of just fizzled out at the end of the season. They got they lost to the Vikings and they lost to the Bears and blew their 11 game streak they had, and then they go into the playoffs. And honestly, the Eagles didn't play well at all, and you still lost. Like if the Eagles came out hot and they beat us in a good match, I would have been okay. But Jordan Love handed him the game on a silver platter. He's like, "Here, you take the win. I don't want it." Every chance he got. So extremely disappointing. Extremely.
Yeah, I always want to watch the Packer games just because it, obviously the podcast and everything, and just everyone there's a Packer fan, so I always know your enemy better than you know yourself type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that first play, unfortunately, though. I missed like the first touchdown. So I did hear about the complaining about it. I heard Nixon say somebody doesn't even want to do kick returns anymore. There's like a whole drama about that as well. So
yeah, he wants to be like a number 1 corner. So he feels like he shouldn't have to do the kickoffs returns, but
gotcha.
He's not good enough to be a number 1 corner. He's good enough to be a starting corner, but not our number 1 corner. So I don't know where he gets off in thinking that.
That's interesting. But yeah, the game, like you said, it kind of pretty much exactly what you said. The Eagles just didn't play very well themselves. Like that offense was struggling. The Packers defense looks legitimately good, like one of the best units in the league. Halfley, right? That's the new defense coordinator.
Yeah.
Like he's done some pretty good things there, trying changing up their scheme. It seems like they're able to get some pass rush in this game, which is something that they struggled at. And if they get pass rush, like it's hard to do anything on that defense. You have a great secondary even without Jair out there. Good linebacker play now with Edrin. What's his last name?
Cooper. Yeah,
Cooper.
He's been good.
Like he's been really good for a rookie. But yeah, when your offense cannot get anything going, and then you're turning it over, and it kind of goes back to what I've been saying the last couple weeks is that I'm still, if I was a Packer fan, I'd be very concerned why they took away like the deep part of the offense, like the high, they took away the deep passes. It seemed like they kind of like brought the game closer to Love and tried to make him like check down more, and which is, one of the things you do when a quarterback is struggling. And it seems like they did that with Love, and it kind of got pushed off because you guys were winning a lot, but you were beating a lot of like lower end teams. So it was just kind of those things like it just kind of, I wanted to see it opened up more. And I think he did okay against the Vikings at the end, but he started out bad against the Vikings, when they lost there. And like this game, it's like everything is going for you guys to hopefully come in here, upset the Eagles, like even if you take away the last 2 games that you lost, you take away the Viking game just because, you lost a game against your division team, and then don't even really count the Bears because they weren't really trying to win it. Right? I think that's more harder on the fans than it is the team itself. And the medium, I think, plays it up more because of that, because that's what sells. So I still think like what we saw is what before that loss is really what they were. And it just overall, it seems like Love cannot get consistent. Like this whole season, has he even had like a great stretch like he did last year? Like he had that 6-game stretch last year. This year, it just seemed like he had a game or two where it's like, okay, I see it. And the media plays it up like he is at that level already. But like, I hate to say it because I feel like I'm coming off as a hater. I just don't see it with Love. I really haven't seen it other than that 6-game stretch, which when I saw it, I was like, cool, that's great. But let's see what he does the next year. And next year, I think has been a real big flop. And I think it's a concern moving forward. I think you have to almost be considering is this is your future quarterback. Like next year, if like he starts out slow again, like you have to think about benching him.
Yeah, I don't know who you'd bench him for, but
you have to bring someone in, obviously.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it is the second year as a starter. I mean, he's been in the NFL for quite a while, but I mean, I've seen a lot of like people will pull up stats from like Rodgers' first 2 years compared to Love's, and they're not that far apart in like total yards. Interception to touchdown is actually surprisingly close. Rodgers wasn't what he was known for. What he is now is like he never throws picks. That's not what he was his first couple of years, so it can take a few years. I'm not writing him off yet, but it is concerning. It's extremely concerning. And the reason he got paid so much is because he did what a lot of quarterbacks don't do. Like he went to a playoff game last year and he played extremely well against at the time. I mean, was the Cowboys the number 1 defense last year? They were up there. They were one of the top.
They're definitely units. Up there, yeah.
Yeah, and he went.
It was a shocking upset last year.
Yeah,
like no one gave you guys that chance, and a lot of it was love to testament to him. Like he looked incredible.
Yeah, he went to AT&T Stadium and he carved him up. I mean, he was throwing fantastic that game. And the next week against the Niners, he wasn't as good. But when you see a quarterback go to the playoffs in the big time against the number 2 seed, and they just whoop the shit out of him like that, you kind of know it, and it's like, I guess we have to pay you now. So he got paid. I mean, when he got paid, I think most Packers fans were like, that's a lot of money for one season and really only one half of a good season. But when it happens to the playoffs, I think it checks that box of like, okay, he can do it in the playoffs. He can do it under the spotlight, prime time, huge game, win or go home. He can still do it. But we haven't seen it since that game, in all honesty. I haven't seen him.
That was the last elite game I've seen him play. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things, like you either shoot. So I lost my train of thought. Darn it. Why do we keep doing that?
I mean, I will say, like, the start of the year was rough for him. Like, he got hurt the first game.
Yeah.
He hadn't looked terrible that game, but he got hurt that game, missed 2 weeks. Came back after 2 weeks from an MCL tear, which is a pretty early return date. He was clearly limping already at that point, and then, like, a week after that, he pulled his groin, had to miss half a game. He was limping around again. So it was kind of after the bye when he finally was healthy. But that was also the time when we kind of switched to our defense was clicking, and we were just switching to Josh Jacobs mode and becoming a run-first team. So
I'm curious if that's like a Love situation, or is that a receiver situation too? Because I mean, I think that's part of it as well. I think there's like some fun players in the Packers receiving core, but is there even? I don't know if you even really have like a legitimate like top tier number 2 out of those guys. Like you have some guys that flash some good stuff on tape. Dobbs, I think he's a great possession receiver. He has the ability to kind of win in the short yardage, intermediate area. He doesn't really have a lot of deep speed, but he catches like everything. But he's kind of one of those guys. He's more reliable than he is like great. Like he's just kind of a guy like you can trust in the right moments to make like a first down for 1st and 7, or I mean a 3rd and 7, right? Like he's that kind of guy. You have Reed, who's kind of more of this gadgety player who can make some pretty big plays, and but there's games where he just disappears. Like to me that it's definitely not a number 1. That's probably arguably a number 2. But even with like how gadgety he's used, he's almost like a number 3, like an elite number 3 maybe. But like I look at this group of receivers and I just see like no one that can consistently win for Love either. So it's hard to completely validate what he's done this season because of that. Like I think you need to get him an option that really changes coverage. Like there's certain receivers that just change coverage and make it way easier for a quarterback to play. You could argue that Love was put in the worst position last year of all the quarterbacks. Like it was a pretty bad situation. Everyone was super young. Like, yeah, there's some talent there, but you guys like to say the youngest team in the league, but the offense was extremely young. In the receiving core, there's like all 1st and 2nd year players. So like he's been in a hard position to be into. So that needs to change.
That is I will definitely say that's part of the problem. I don't see a number 1 wide receiver there, and he's not Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, who can make a Khalil Shakir. I don't even know who the fuck's even on the Ravens anymore.
They have that one guy from Minnesota. Like I know where
they got Flowers,
but I don't know his name.
Yeah, they got Flowers, but he missed last week, and they still dominated without him.
Well, they don't really need the receivers. The receivers are there just to pull the coverage off the top. I think more for Lamar and Henry. They just want guys that can stretch the field.
Yeah,
so they don't really necessarily need like that type of receiver. Isn't like that expensive to find. Like
I'm just saying. Jordan Love's not that. He needs a number 1 wide receiver. He needs someone to throw the ball to, and we don't have it. I mean, the point was they were all young. one of these guys is going to improve and get better and take the next step and be an elite wide receiver, but none of them did. They all kind of, if anything, they all took a step back this year. Packers led the NFL in drop rate by quite a bit. It was not good.
And I feel like that shows an experience and it shows potential skill, like, is it a skill issue? Is it an experience issue? But because you have like an inexperienced receiver and an experienced quarterback, like things are just not going to be exactly where they need to be. So that kind of hurts everybody. That was a big thing in Stafford's early years, actually. I think that's that guys with those big arms. For one, they throw such a fastball, like it's hard to catch. And then like if you're not in a rhythm, it's harder to hit on rhythm. And people like they have to learn the touch because they kind of learn like the fastball first. And it seems like he's still trying to learn that touch side of his game. It took Stafford like almost 10 years to really get a lot of touch on his passes. Like he would always just be like 5-yard check down. He would just throw a bullet. It's like, dude, why are you not lofting that and giving him like a little bit more room to run? It's a hard thing to do. So I think Love struggles with that a little bit too. And I think that hurts both the receivers and himself. So I think those numbers kind of play into both sides.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what the Packers do if they want to address that wide receiver room in the offseason. I'm curious. I mean, I don't know if there's any free agents you can grab this year, really, that are going to do you
T. Higgins,
good.
but he's like kind of like you might have to
One.
trade for him. And I don't think he'd be a free agent because I think he can franchise him.
Yeah.
He could just stay with the Bengals too. You never know.
I think he's going to want a lot of money too.
Oh, he's going to want, if he gets traded to a team, he's probably getting like the best contract, like at the time, like the highest paid contract. I think if he goes back to the Bengals, he'll get like maybe like the 7th highest paid receiver, or like 5th. They're not going to pay both him and Chase number 1 money in the same offseason. Like that's why I think he'll be gone. So he might not get Chase money because Chase hasn't got paid yet either. So Chase will be probably the highest no matter what we talk about. But I mean, he's going to be under Chase, and that's going to be number 2. So you got to pay him a hefty fee. But is he going to be AJ Brown and be this transcendent player for you, or is he going to be, let's just say, like DeAndre Hopkins when he got traded? He was a little bit older. He's not the perfect example. He's not like a young player at that time, but like he kind of just fell off a cliff after he went to Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's just as many of those, and he's always been a side by side with Jamar Chase this whole time. So I'm curious what he does as a number 1 wide receiver with number 1 coverage. Chase has missed time, and he's been good. He looks good, but there's still that question mark of, are you getting a legit number 1 wide receiver, or are you just throwing another number 2 wide receiver on your team?
Right, and he'd be like an elite number 2, but like, yeah, he's still number 2. Like, is he able to really win against double coverage and stuff? But I don't know. He's an interesting case. I think he definitely gives you something you don't have, like his skill set. But yeah, I don't know if you want to pay that kind of money for him. That's.
I'm not a GM, but I wouldn't want to do it. I don't think it's worth the gamble to block yourself that much money to a guy.
If it was a bad draft for receivers, which I have no clue, I haven't followed it at all. Like let's say like the first round's like, okay, there's like 1 or 2 first round receivers, I'd probably make the trade for Higgins. But if it's like, there's been a couple years lately where it's like, yeah, there's 5 number 1 or 5 first round guys. Like those are the type of years where you're like, yeah, whatever, I'm not going to trade for a guy. I'll just take one of the guys that I get.
Yeah.
I think you got to find somebody. Someone's got to be like a number 1 or expected to be a number 1.
Yeah, I don't even know if Christian Watson will be back at the start of next season either with his injury.
I'm sure he's not going to be.
It's going to drag into the beginning of next season.
Well,
that's another thing too in this game is we did lose. Like, kind of softens the blow of the loss because we lost. Christian Watson's already out. We lost Dobbs and Reed in this game to injury. So I was like, even if we squeaked out that win somehow, like we're not winning another game with no wide receivers left. It's just not happening. So there was no further to go for us anyways. So, but it still always sucks to lose in the playoffs, especially when the other team plays so bad. You feel like you should get the win, but yeah. So yeah, I'm very curious what the Packers do moving forward with this whole situation.
Yeah, they're going to have a very interesting offseason because you get a lot of the Aaron Rodgers money coming off too, right? Isn't that coming off this year?
It should be all gone by now, yeah.
I know it was like 2 years, so I feel like it's gone. So
I mean, the Jets picked up quite a bit of it too as part of the trade, but
I mean, there's still that's a lot of money. It's probably like 30 million. So like that's your number 1 receiver right there, right? So
could be.
It could be the money to actually sign that guy. So they could do some big things. I think they kind of have to. It's kind of like that regime's like final like opportunity. I think like they got to kind of show it. Like this is your quarterback that you went for. This is why we gave
Yeah.
up on Aaron Rodgers. This needs to be successful in the third year, or this whole thing's probably getting blown up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
You don't think so?
I don't think they blow. They're doing good. It's not like they're a bad team. I don't. I don't think they're bad. Like they're good.
Yeah.
Top
I just feel like the
12
Packers
for
have such
sure.
a high
Top 10
like
team.
expectation. Like the fans, I think, if they don't make the playoffs next year,
That could cause.
that's what I'm saying. Like, not
Yeah.
if they make the playoffs again, it's a different conversation. I'm saying like they bottom out. Like, let's say they go 8-9, don't really have a great season. Everyone's healthy. Don't really have any excuses.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably can save LaFleur and like whatnot, but if like Love struggles, then it's like they get inertia. And the only coaches and GMs don't get a second shot at a quarterback. Maybe LaFleur's success would be enough to keep him there, but like maybe I'm being a little harsh, but I feel like the conversation would be definitely coming up.
Could be. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'd have to see it, but yeah. I mean, yeah. Packers fans and media do not like when we don't make the playoffs. It cost Mike McCarthy his job. 1 year we didn't make the playoffs, and that was it.
Exactly. The expectations are super high. And it's not like you're that far off of the Aaron Rodgers MVP seasons. Like you guys know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to follow that up with what they have and not see some changes made. It's to me that it's going to be an interesting year for them. I'm sure Goody or Gutekunst and LaFleur probably will feel it a little bit in the offseason. Like they might be like, maybe they're changing like, okay, we need to go and get a receiver. Like they probably feel like they can't just like coast next year. You know, I think they feel like they might have to make a big move like that if they think that's what the team needs.
Yeah. I don't know what Jordan Love's contract looked like, but if he sucks again next year, it might be possible to move off of him too. But because that'd be 3 years out of the 5. I don't know what it costs. The last 2 years are usually when you can kind of wiggle your way out and be like, all right, we'll eat a little bit. And
I'm sure there was protections in that contract. It was probably higher because they're like, we'll give you that money to make you look like you're getting the best contract, but there's some outs for us too in the back end because we're still not 100% sure. Like it still wasn't like, we know we got Pat Mahomes, we're paying Pat Mahomes. Like they went into it like, okay, like you said, he had a great stretch there, but at that point you're like, you're kind of you had to do it. Everyone pays him there. Like no one, that wasn't a bad decision. It's like, you have to make the decision, you pay him.
Yeah. Well, you can't let him be a free agent the next year. Someone will come and offer him Boku bucks. If he performed well, maybe he wouldn't have gotten it after this year's performance, but it's a gamble to take.
It's gonna be funny. It was either the best decision or the worst decision off of that. Like you had to make a decision, and like, yes, it was a great decision, but it could just be like what sinks it or it's what makes it flourish. It's interesting. It's a cool dynamic that you guys are in, watching from afar. But yeah, I can imagine that's getting to the point where it's like, ooh.
Yeah, time will tell. Hopefully next year it looks more like the second half of the first year. But we'll jump into the last couple of games here. So we had the Buccaneers versus the Commanders. So you took the Commanders in this one, and I took the Buccaneers. So, so you were up. We were tied after the last one because you took the Eagles, and then this one puts you in the lead because you took the Commanders over the Buccaneers. Good call, by the way. I don't know. Commanders are really good, but I just didn't trust the rookie playoff performance. But Jane Daniels looked fantastic. He looked like he had no problem at all going to the playoffs. And that game was close. This is the best game. It was close almost the entire game. Jane Daniels, led the game-winning drive at the end. I mean, he was awesome. On the other side, the Buccaneers played well too. Baker looked awesome. It's just, I think Baker had a fumble at the end or something like that near the end.
Yeah,
I can't remember. He had like one mistake really, but he also played great. These are the kind of games you're hoping for in the playoffs. Most of them weren't really like this week. It was either blowouts or kind of shitty games.
I don't think any of the games are good. This is the only good game we had.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Normally you want more of these to be in the playoffs, and next week hopefully there are. I mean,
this first week is always a little lopsided. I think it tightens up once we get past wild card weekend. And that actually looking at it, Baker Mayfield, he had a 146.5 pass rating. So like, he played darn good at his own right. You know, it wasn't like he just couldn't pull it together because he made some big mistakes. Like, yeah, he maybe fumbled, but he was playing great on his own. Overall, yeah, when I made the pick, I actually was kind of leaning towards Tampa. So this is one of those ones where I could have gone either way. And since you picked Tampa, I'm just like, I'll just pick the Commanders. But Daniels is impressive, man. Like, he is an older rookie, so like I think that does take away a little bit of like all the experience. Like, this dude is, I think, a 24-year-old rookie, and most of the time these guys coming out like 21, so he's got a lot more experience. And right now, the way the game is, the college game and the NFL game are closer than they've ever been. So like these guys coming out of college, they're already playing like systems that are very similar that they play in the NFL. Where before they used to play like more complicated systems once they got to the NFL. That's not the case anymore. These things are basically NFL programs. So if he shows it in the season, he's probably going to do it in the playoffs. But obviously, sometimes people have that, nervousness that gets to him. I don't think he has that though. Even back at LSU, he just doesn't seem like anything phases him. Like he's actually a fun player to watch because of that. He never changes. Like if you watch him on the sidelines and some of the games he's been down in this year, like nothing changes with his demeanor. And to me, that when you're a quarterback, that's what you have to be. You never get too excited, never get too under get too high, nor get too low. And I think that's what keeps these guys being great, because like they can just always keep their emotions in check in every situation, which is what you need. And when you're in a game-winning drive, that's when that stuff plays into the difference in being the game. And yeah, Washington looks great. It's actually who the Lions are going to be playing next week. I haven't been a big fan of them this year. Like I haven't really thought great of them. I kind of always made comments about how like I thought Daniels is going to slow down. He hasn't yet. I do think they're running into a juggernaut next week, so we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting game if they can keep up, because I do think they're kind of like a tier or two below what the Lions are right now. So this is I don't want to say a favorable opponent, but I guess we'll find out. It's going to be a good game. Hope to see a win on the Lions side, but
yeah,
I think I'm actually happier to see them than the Bucs, since we already lost to the Bucs. So
we'll jump into the next week's matchups in the next part, because we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, he looks legit. He's that dude might be the next superstar, because all year he had like that one little bad stretch after he hurt his ribs and exited that one game. Mm-hmm. He played the next week, but he kind of had like that little lull for like 3 weeks. But if you had bruised ribs, I understand having 3 bad games.
Right, especially playing through that. That's not easy. Like I'm sure that every throw hurts, everything hurts. And like he's a running quarterback, and he was still running and taking hits. And he's not a big dude. It's not like he's Josh Allen. Like this guy's only like barely over 200 pounds.
Yeah, he's small for a runner. So so that was you got 2 of the. Oh, you beat me in the picks by 1. So congrats. I'm gonna do my shout out alert here real quick.
There you go. Oh yeah, you picked all the NFC teams wrong. Huh? That's why.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking. I thought you picked the Rams, but you pivoted at the end and went to the Vikings.
I did, yeah.
Now I see.
I did. Because I didn't want to. I feel like the Vikings they're coming off that bad loss to the Lions, where Sam Darnold looks so crappy. I was like, that was a terrible performance. And if they play like that, there's no chance they're going to beat a playoff team.
I mean, you said exactly what was going to happen. You're like, after that performance, he could do it again. Maybe he's broke, and then the Rams, they look really good, and like they're going to come out hot. Like you literally called the game. You just didn't.
I talked myself out. I was like, no, I don't want to change my whole opinion on the Vikings because of one game, but I should have, because the next one we had Rams versus Vikings. We both picked the Vikings, and we were both wrong, disastrously wrong, as a matter of fact. But this is the third one where the quarterback Sam Darnold, he cost him the game. He played just like Love and Herbert, extremely poorly. Turned the ball over, missed open wide receivers. He was getting sacked. I mean, his sacks, I think he got sacked like 9 times or something.
They tied an NFL playoff record, the Rams did, with 9 sacks. He had 6 in the first half.
And they weren't like, these were like sacks where he was dropping back like 15 yards and then getting plowed. One of them, they were like 3rd and 2. And he got sacked for like a 17-yard loss or something stupid like that. I'm like, how do you even have the chance to back up that far when you're 3rd and 2? Like, shouldn't the play be like, it should be a short crosser or something? Like, I don't even understand how he was that far backwards. So I don't know if the dude was in his own head, if he was just freaked out because of last week. Playoffs, big light, I don't know, but man, he looked terrible. This dude, we were talking about him possibly being like an MVP mention or candidate, whatever. Literally 3 games ago, he was playing so great. He played the Packers 3 weeks ago, and he looked like an MVP. He was hitting everybody. Wide receivers were catching the ball. They were just doing whatever the fuck they wanted, and then they play the Lions and they play the Rams, and just polar opposite performance by Sam Darnold. I couldn't really wrap my head around it. I don't know what happened. We were kind of talking before the show. I mean, this is brutal for him. Like, I mean, the dude literally, what did you say? He probably lost $100 million in 8 days in those 2 games.
In 8 days, he lost $100 million, I would say, easily.
Yeah, I mean, he was looking for the next big quarterback contract in the offseason, and the newest contract is always the highest contract, so it was very possible he was going to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL next season. And after 2 bad games, really bad games, I mean, these are brutal games, and one of them being a playoff game, it ain't going to happen anymore. Sucks really bad for him. On the flip side, I mean, Stafford and the Rams, they looked awesome. They look great. That's going to be a hard team to beat for anybody. Like, I'll get into their matchup next week in the next part, but yeah, they're looking pretty red hot. They're all healthy and they look very good. That defense, I didn't think the Vikings O-line was bad, but I mean, they were just plowing through it and they were getting all over Sam Darnold in that game. So props to them too. They played a great game.
I didn't follow like the plays as closely. Like, you kind of have to watch defensive play to really know what's going on. And like the way the Lions played last week, they're running a lot of like defensive back blitzes and things like that. And I wonder if the Rams did some of the same. I know they got a lot of pressure, but they have a better defensive line than us right now, just because Verse is healthy. Our defensive, and that's really great, isn't healthy. So I think Verse was just kind of wrecking the game for a little bit. But I think you're right. It just looked like the offensive line just kind of, they just didn't play well. Like, there was so much pressure up the middle. Like, it just didn't matter. I was just watching because I put the like Gamecast on to see. They had like a little like video. And then they're playing one of the sacks.
Mhm.
And, like, it was just literally like Verse comes around the edge and the left tackle gets him pretty well and contains them. So it's like he didn't really get that much pressure. But then Darnold steps up a little bit, and there's literally like 2 defensive tackles in his face because they just dominated their guard. So it's like, yeah, he shouldn't have stepped up. There was probably enough pressure by Verse so he couldn't just roll out, and that's probably why he felt like he had to step up. But like, there was nothing he could do basically. Like, there wasn't even that great of a pass rush. Like, but his offensive lineman just like fell over almost. So that's maybe a telling sign of what happened. But yeah, he's lost a lot of money. I would say from 50 million a year down to 30 in 8 days, probably for like his yearly salary. I think he's looking, you said it earlier, the Baker Mayfield contract is probably where he's looking at now. And before, he was probably arguing he could be what Goff got, maybe not the number 1 guy, but somewhere in the top 5, definitely. He was looking at some big money. So he's lost a lot. I think right now, I think I said it earlier this year, is like, I didn't think Sam Darnold will get re-signed. I definitely don't think he's getting re-signed now. I think they kind of almost have to move on to JJ McCarthy and then keep Daniel Jones around and just move on from him, because that was probably, that's what I expect them to do all year. Like, I kept betting against him because I thought it was eventually going to happen. And he finally did it the last 2 games of the season, when I changed my tune on him a little bit and thought maybe he did just turn everything around. But I think we saw the ghosts came back in Sam Darnold's mind, and I think they're still there. I'd be really, really concerned. I think someone like the Giants might give that guy like 30 million, and I don't think things are going to get better for him. I think it's going to get worse.
No, if he goes to a team like that, it'll get worse for sure.
Yeah. I think he needs a great system around him. I just don't think he's going to elevate the team around him. Like, he's going to play probably within the offense okay and well, but he's only going to get like what's there from the skill positions. Like, he's not going to get extra from them.
I think if the Vikings offer him anything remotely competitive, he should stay there. If they want to like use him as a starter 1 more year, and then be the backup the year after, whatever they want to do with him.
Or maybe even just goes into it like, I'll take a 1 year, 35 million. Then he knows like, okay, JJ McCarthy, like that might be a win-win for both of them. Like, maybe he's looking at 27 million a year, and he's like, okay, I can get 27 million over 3 years, or I can get 35 1 year at the Vikings, and maybe get a start of the season where I can just do what I'm doing last year, and then I'm maybe looking at a $40 million a year contract instead of that 27. He's gonna have some interesting offers. I think. I don't think he's gonna get like a lot of like long-term offers. So he's gonna get a lot of like weird, like it's almost like a 1-year contract, but they disguise it as a 3-year.
Yeah.
Or someone's gonna give him like, we'll give you 3 years, but it's gonna be really low a year
Yeah.
for what you probably could get if you took like a different type of layout. He's got a lot of decisions to make. I think in the next couple weeks here.
Yeah. He's made his agent's job way harder those last couple games.
You know who didn't make their agent's job way harder? Matthew Stafford. He's going to have to start getting some conversation of being one of the best playoff quarterbacks we've ever seen.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't argue against that. Dude's been
he's awesome. Only had a couple years of playoff success now because he's been on the Lions for so long. Like, he was always one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen under pressure. Whenever the moment was the biggest, something just flips on in his head. You know how we were talking about quarterbacks that don't have that happen, like Sam Darnold? The complete opposite happens to Stafford. And it was so fun to watch him just tear up I turned it off the game at halftime, but like Stafford can beat anybody in the NFL when he's on. So even if this team maybe is not even like the most talented, they can beat anyone because when Matthew Stafford's on, he is the best quarterback on that field. And yeah, I guess you could say I have a couple guys, but Stafford's on that level. He can just elevate, and he's kind of got that old man like knowledge now. You know, like he's the oldest guy when it comes to like the longest tenure and the most experience in NFL, who still is like maybe at the end of his athletic prime. Like he can still sling it. He's not lost a whole lot. He still has most of his athletic gifts still. And he's got that mind where he's played for so long that he can't be fooled. And like that's a deadly combination. That's Tom Brady, you know, the last like 7 years of his career. It was just like, he just knows everything. That was Rodgers for a while. I think Stafford's turn is coming. And that's who he's the last guy now of the old guys, or he's the next one up of the old guys that gets to do that for a year or two.
Stafford still got that fucking toughness to him though. I mean, I watched one play where he was clearly about to get just fucking drilled by an untouched defender. And he just stays in, drops the dime pass, and then just gets fucking smoked. I'm like, dude, that's got to be so hard when you're that age. Like, you know what's coming.
Fucked up back, too.
You know you're completely undefended against it, and you're going to get hit hard here. And there's not going to be a penalty because it's so close to when you let go of the ball. But he knows if he tries to, like, lean back and, you know, block it, whatever, it's going to fuck up his form, and he'll fuck up the throw, and you just watching him stay in and throw it, I'm like, damn, dude, props to you. That takes balls.
He's broke bones in his back twice, with the Lions. I think he did it again with the Rams. Like that guy,
he missed half a season like 2 years ago or something like that.
I think it was kind of part of the same injury. It was kind of like lingered on near his end of his Lions tenure. So when they traded for him, he still had it. And I think he did okay in the Super Bowl run. And then like the next year, I think they're just like, yeah, let's just have you sit down. You need to just get this back thing kind of fixed. This could really fuck you up for the rest of your career. So yeah, he's always been like that. The dude is so tough. There's so many pictures of him when he was the Lions getting hit by like I know there's a famous one, and his helmet was like coming off, and you could see his face. He's just there's this weird ass look on his face, and he's just getting mangled. And I think he like fucked up his arm or leg really bad on that, and just finished the game. Everyone's like, "This is the hit that did it." Just look at his face, and like he still managed to do crazy stuff. Well, you ever see the famous video of him where he fucked up his shoulder? He dislocated his left shoulder, and then he finished the game. Oh my God. You need to watch this after you're done. So basically, NFL films. It's probably the best NFL film of all time. You know how they do like those little like 2 minutes of like a final drive?
A little short thing, yeah.
I'm not even being biased here. I think if you watch it, you'll probably say it's one of the best of all time, if not the best you've ever seen. But it was Stafford's rookie year. He was going against the Browns. And I think it was the game. I think we didn't win a game yet up to this point. I could be wrong about that. But no, we beat the Redskins earlier in the year. But anyway, we're against Brady Quinn, of all people, who is just god awful. And he was just lighting us up because our team was just terrible. And we were going down to win the game. And Stafford goes to throw like a Hail Mary to Calvin in the corner of the end zone. Gets just fucking laid out by a 350-pound dude. Not like just a small end man. He just got laid out by a tackle. It was bad. He gets up. He's like, oh, like you hear it. Like he's mic'd up for this. That's why it's so crazy. He's just sitting there in agony. Dominic Raiola comes up and taps him on. Are you okay, man? He's like, no. And then Dominic Royale's like, oh. And then he goes on the sideline. The doctors look at him right away, Stafford, with his shoulder still like screaming in pain. Well, you know you have to come out for a play, right?
Yeah.
They're like, yep, nope. There's a timeout. And he's like, oh shit, coach, there's a timeout. So I can play. And like the doctors are just like, wait, what? And he just like runs past the doctors and runs out on the field. And Culpepper, I think, was our backup at the time. And he's just like, hey man, I can play. Culpepper's like, oh, okay. So he walks out. Stafford comes in there. Literally his left arm is like hanging off of his body. He didn't play another game after this. He like dislocated his shoulder or something. I can't remember exactly what the injury was, but like his arm was not attached, it looked like. Goes in because it was on the pass to Kelvin. There was a pass interference on the 1. So for the game winner, Stafford with arm throws a ball over the middle to Brendan Pettigrew to win the game. I can remember all the players just because like it was so iconic. It was like the greatest moment of my Lions life probably until just recently, other than maybe like Barry Sanders going for 2,000 yards. But it's worth watching. It's a crazy video. Stafford has always been a dog like that. That guy will always be one of my favorite players of all time. I love the fact that he got to win a Super Bowl. It wasn't with us, which sucks, but man, I'm going to still follow that guy's career to the end. I wish he destroys everyone but the Lions, which hopefully is in the championship.
Well, gonna have to if he wants to go all the way this year. But yeah, I guess a little. Yeah, I mean, I love. Yeah, Stafford's awesome. He's fun to watch. Like you said, when he's on. I mean, it was like 3-4 weeks ago where he had that 40-some points against the Bills in that fucking crazy shootout.
Right. And
one of the Bills' couple losses this year. Yeah, dude.
Again, he can beat any team. Like you could be playing at your best if he's on. Like he was like that against Lions in week 1. Like that team was destroyed. Yeah. They had like that was the most injured team I've ever seen week 1 of the season ever. And then they lost Puka Nacua like right away in that game. And they already had, I think, 3 of their starters on offensive line were gone. The Lions were just like literally pressuring them like every play. I think like Hutch had like 11 pressures or something ridiculous. Like he just never got a sack. And it was because like it was really like hike, pass, I'm falling over, pass. Stafford just played out of his mind. He almost won that game. And there was no one other than Cooper Kupp on his team doing anything.
Yep.
So yeah. He doesn't. I gotta stop getting off my Stafford connection, bro.
That's all good. The dude's a boss. He's a Super Bowl champ.
I never had the opportunity to have a podcast to talk about when he was on the Lions, so I got to give him a little bit of love.
You miss him a little bit. I get it.
Oh, I absolutely do. I appreciate Goff for what he is, but like it's really hard between those two, man. They're both. They should just be on the same tier for me.
Well, speaking of those guys, they'll both be playing next week. So we'll go over. We'll do a little prelude of next week, man. Do you want to do the same thing this week? Just bet on, see if we have enough disagreements, and that'll be the bet.
Yeah, we'll see how it ends up, and then go from there.
Yeah. And there's some of these we could go either way. So the first one we got Texans versus Chiefs. I mean, Texans are coming off a red hot win. Chiefs starters have had like a month to rest at this point because they didn't play the last week of the season. They had the bye, and then the week for it, the last time the starters played was Christmas Day. That's how long ago it was. It's an insanely long time. They don't play till this. I don't know if they play Saturday or Sunday, but yeah, because they had that weird. We're playing Wednesday night, which counts as like the Sunday after that set of games.
Right. Yeah.
So they had a super early game that week, and they clinched the number 1 seed with their wins. They, not all the starters, but all the big name older guys, they all got to rest for quite a long time, like kind of an unheard of rest stretch. And I think they're disciplined enough, and they have enough playoff experience. They're not going to come out rusty like you kind of worry about with some teams. I don't see the Chiefs doing that. I got to take the Chiefs. I would love for the Texans to win. That'd be an awesome upset to see, but I don't see how they do it.
I'm thinking the Texans.
Are you?
I'm gonna go for it. I will.
Okay.
I will.
I wanted to. I'm like, that's such a dumb bet, but we're only not the person.
Yeah, I want to make it interesting for the shot. Definitely. I'm not the person that normally goes and bets and plays like, oh, I don't like the Patriots because they're good. You know, I'm not the person that's saying, oh, I don't want to. I want the Chiefs to lose just because they always win. I honestly don't care about that stuff. But we'll make it interesting. In reality, though, I think Houston does have one of those teams that like we've kind of dogged on them all year, and they haven't really played that well. But they still have all those elements of like a good team, and they can. I think they could be a team that gets hot at the right time in the playoffs, and they dominated the Chargers, who played the Chiefs close twice this year. And it's not like the Chargers are any like joke of a team. Like they dominated and are a playoff team, and that defense has some top end talent in the secondary. Like I don't know what the Chiefs are going to do because they don't really have the receivers I think that can break that coverage. So that's going to really take out the top part of, and they're really good deep corners. So like I don't think Mahomes is going to really have much deep. He's going to have to really rely on Kelsey, which normally is okay. So it's going to come down to how well Kelsey plays. I think on offense, I don't think the receivers are going to get a lot of separation from those corners. And if they can keep Kelsey contained, they have two really good pass rushers, and I think they can get Mahomes unraveled quick. And I think that's exactly what we saw against the Chargers. So I think they could put that same defensive pressure on Mahomes and really change the game. And I think you got Stroud, and he made some crazy plays in that game against the Chargers. Like it's not like he really regressed as much as like how he's playing on the field. It might be that he's had some more injuries around him, and there's a little bit more challenge because of that. All he really has is Nico Collins from the beginning of the year. So you can kind of put that into being like, okay, that's why he's had a lackluster season for what we expected. But, we saw him do some things last week that make him look like an elite quarterback. So it's a good recipe, I think. I think you got this team that came off, like you said, a lot of rest. This isn't just like 1 week rest. Like you come back to work after 3 weeks, things feel a little different. It doesn't matter. It's going to take them a quarter, I think. I'll bet you the first quarter, I'll give you this. Houston will score first, and they'll get at least a 10-point lead before the Chiefs make it like a competitive game. I think Houston's going to come out hot because of that. So I'm going to take the Texans. I actually feel more confident about it as I talk.
I would love to see it. I don't see it happening. I mean, the Texans, they're not going to get – Mahomes is not going to do for them what Justin Herbert did for them last week. Like, there's just no way. Mahomes is not going to give away a game like that. And if it weren't for that, the Texans might still have won. But, I mean, they kicked their asses because Herbert gave them the ball 3 times. And I think did he throw a pick 6 in that game?
I believe so.
I'm pretty sure one of their 7 of their points was just
the Texans don't have crazy offensive numbers with 32 points. There had to be a defensive touchdown. Yeah, 1 touchdown from Stroud, 1 from Mixon, so there had to be a defensive touchdown.
Yeah, I think there might have been like a blocked punt or something weird in that game too. I don't remember for sure, but yeah, I don't know. I don't see the Chiefs getting bounced in their first playoff game. I can't imagine it. They've been too good for too long, and like.
Aren't they like due for one though?
They're
just kind of due for like every team has that one. Like it just seems like to me like this isn't going to be their year for some reason. I just don't feel it. Maybe I'm using my intuition too much, but like they just seem off. And they did it last year too. But even though they've been looking good the last couple of weeks, like I honestly I think that time off is a big deal. I think that's going to make them have like almost like they're guaranteed to have 1 bad quarter in the beginning of the game. Or at least like not a great quarter. And like if that's enough against another playoff team to lose, I don't know. I'm actually, like I said, as more I talked about, I kind of like the Texans a little bit more against them. I think they can play the Chiefs. They play into the Chiefs' strengths very well. Like they're going to be able to play their strengths against the Chiefs' strengths. And I think their strengths will play out. It really comes down to what Mahomes can do, which I mean, it's hard to bet on Mahomes or bet against Mahomes.
That's the thing. That's why I can't do it. It's like Mahomes and Kelsey will find a way to get some stupid play when they need it, and they'll win by like a field goal or something stupid at the end, even if they are getting their asses whooped all game. Like
I mean, that's what they've done all year.
It'll happen. Yeah,
they'll look like shit the whole game, but they basically have this slobber knocker or whatever, just punching back and forth on defense, and then it's just this weird, ugly game that they just come out and Mahomes is like, "Oh yeah, I'm still Pat Mahomes," and then scores like a 97-yard touchdown drive in 2 minutes.
Well, yeah, okay. So you got the Texans, I got the Chiefs. Bold bet on your part. I mean, Chiefs got to be pretty big favorites, I would guess, coming off all that rest plus home field advantage.
They have the biggest probably spread.
The teams left, they'd have to, yeah. Because the next one, this is the game I'm most looking forward to. We've got Ravens versus Bills. And I would love to see either one of these teams play the Chiefs the following week. That'd be a great game too. They've actually all played each other this year, strangely enough. Yeah, last time Ravens Bills played, Ravens actually beat the shit out of the Bills. It was a pretty one-sided game. Ravens just dominated last time, but I think this is pretty hard for me to pick. I'll let you pick this one. You can pick this one first.
I honestly don't really know either going into it. Obviously, I've kind of talked highly about Baltimore all year. Like they've always been one of my favorite teams. I love the advanced analytics that they used when they brought in Lamar. They actually changed their whole offense to complement Lamar. Like not a lot of teams are willing to do that. I think that's kind of like how teams are trying to push more for the college game. Lamar needs a very specific offense to work in the NFL. He might be getting there now, where he can run more traditional offenses, just because he's getting better with his stats. He's more timed in his rhythms of his passes and stuff like that. So he's improved in that a lot. But they're one of those teams that really made a big risk to do that. So that I've always loved Baltimore, and they actually, with that win, they have now beat the Cowboys as the number one team in NFL history for win rate. So they're now
really?
the most successful team in the NFL as far as their whole history. I think Packers are number 3. So something cool to boast about. But yeah, so Lamar Jackson, he's incredible. If they can pick the MVP off of a game, like this is going to be it, right? I think whoever wins, and if they win and they're spectacular between Jackson and Allen, that guy's like, he deserves the MVP at that point, right? Like this should be what this should be. They should just say the winner of the quarterback matchup. It shouldn't be the game who wins it, but whoever like dominates from the quarterback position, that's who gets the MVP. And hopefully that's how they do it, because I don't think they voted yet. So hopefully
they're supposed to vote off regular season though, right? You're not supposed to count.
I think they are, but I think they vote later on, because they vote. Yeah. I think they're announced like in the week between the playoff or the end of the playoffs and the Super Bowl, right? Like the Pro Bowl week. I think that's when they're like announced.
Yeah.
So like it's always obvious.
Based on regular season production only.
It is, but it's very obvious that it's swayed voting in the past, and I think this will be a year that would be telling. But I mean, right now, everyone's saying Lamar's going to get it because he got the All-Pro number 1 spot. So generally, All-Pro is like the highest, like even almost more than MVP. Like All-Pro is like the spot that you want. Obviously, MVP is basically just saying the All-Pro quarterback, first team All-Pro.
Yeah.
That is. So, but there has been one time in NFL history where the guy who, or maybe it's not one, it's been more, but I think there's one situation I know of where it was like, I can't remember who it was, the quarterbacks. It was 2 great quarterbacks though, and one guy won All-Pro first team, but then the other guy won the MVP. So it has happened before, but I think it's pretty telling that Lamar is probably going to win it. But again, if Baltimore comes on and dominates, then I think Josh Allen deserves it. I'm rambling on because I still don't know who I really want to pick, but I'm going to go with my gut from what I felt earlier in the year. DVOA supports them as the number 1 team right now. I've loved Baltimore for the last couple of years. I think they're due for a Super Bowl run, and I think they're going to beat Buffalo. I think Buffalo has just enough weaknesses. Baltimore's defense is really starting to come together. They're the better overall team. Give me Baltimore.
Okay. Yeah, I was just letting you pick, so I figured I'd just take whoever you didn't pick. But it's a coin flip for me. Both these teams are fantastic. It sucks one of them has to get bounced, but only one can do it. So you're taking the Ravens, and I'm taking the Bills. Yeah, it should be a fantastic game. I hope it doesn't disappoint, because that should be awesome.
This is honestly, the hype of this should be almost on the same level as the Lions-Vikings game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
just because like these are the 2 contenders for the Super Bowl other than the Chiefs for the AFC side. Like I don't think anyone really gives Houston much of a chance. There's 3 big dogs, right? And 2 of them are playing, and they're the ones that haven't done it yet. So like they both are in the same boat. They both lose to the Chiefs, so they both get that honor to play against the King after they win this game. So like it's a really cool dynamic if the Chiefs win, to think about that, like the step up the ladder. So I'm more excited for this almost than the Detroit game. Like for a football fan, this is all you can ask for. This is the type of games you want to see.
Yeah, and they've both been. Yeah, like I said, it's 2 MVPs going head to head. It's just awesome. You don't get to see that very often.
No,
a couple times a year at best. So on the NFC side, we've got the Rams versus the Eagles. Just base on what I saw last week, I have to go Rams here. Rams looked awesome. Eagles looked pretty lackluster. Rams have the better quarterback. Eagles have the better running back. Eagles probably have a better defense. But I'll take the Rams. I mean, the Eagles just came out so flat last week against the Packers. And if they were playing against, I think, any other playoff team, they would have got bounced last week. So unless they straighten that out this week, I don't think they have a chance. The Rams are playing playoff football now. I don't think they're going to drop a game to the Eagles.
Yeah, it was impressive how they beat the Vikings. I honestly though, I think the Vikings might have got kind of mentally destroyed again after that
It could
Lions
be.
game. Like I've been really hyping up Kevin O'Connell in this podcast, and I've really been a big fan of his for the last couple of years since he's been the Vikings. But like he has been out coached now 2 weeks in a row, like pretty bad. And there's like a talk about who deserves the coach of the year between O'Connell and Campbell, and everyone was like, well, which coach changed how they coach against the other opponent? And it's like, yeah, O'Connell changed. Like he was way more aggressive. Like he had the least amount of fourth down attempts like in the league going in against the Lions, and he was doing it the whole game. Like he completely changed. So it was kind of funny to see that. But yeah, I think that team just they self-destruct, and that really hurt. But I don't want to take away from the Rams. They played great. I have actually a hard time picking the Eagles over the Rams here, but I still think I will. I love Stafford. Kupp and Puka Nacua are one of the best tandems in the league. They have a great running game. Their defense is young, but when they play well, they've been really good, especially because they're so athletic because they're so young. So like they're still kind of a defense figuring out. But that Shula, whoever their defense coordinator is, I think it's like I can't remember his first name, but I know his last name Shula.
Yeah.
He's been incredible as a defensive play caller this year. So like he's getting the most out of that team. But I think when it comes down to it, the Eagles' offensive line is not going to let that kind of pressure happen. I don't think the defense is going to be able to hold up against that Eagles offensive line, and they're going to really struggle to stop Saquon Barkley because of that. The Packers did pretty good containing him, but you can't contain him for too many games. I think he's going to go off against the Rams here, and really if Barkley goes off, I don't think there's any really beating the Eagles. So I'm going to take the Eagles.
Yeah, I just think they're very outclassed at quarterback. I think Stafford is like a full tier or two above what I think Jalen Hurts is. Jalen Hurts is just he's got his legs, but I do not think he's a good thrower. Even with really good wide receivers, like he never does that much. So I don't know. Rams just need to score some points. Score a lot of points and make the Eagles actually have to throw. I think they'll be fine.
You've never been a big fan of Hurts this year. I mean, you've called him
out.
Never
have been.
You had him that first year, like he was really good in fantasy. So maybe that made you feel like you had a more positive outlook on him. I've just been shocked.
Good for fantasy. I don't think he's a good thrower. He's good for fantasy because he gets the tush push, and that's a huge thing. And he's good at scrambling. He gets yards with his legs, but
he hasn't gotten better like since his first year. Like he kind of seems like the same. Like yes, last year he wasn't as great because of the injury, but like he wasn't like playing that great. Like he didn't like ascend, he was just kind of like, okay, this is what he is. We know what he is. I don't think he's anything different. I don't think he's ever going to leave anything different, which is like probably a slightly above average quarterback, mainly because of his running. So I agree with that. I would say, yeah, Stafford's definitely a tier 2 above, but like you can't always pick the quarterback either, like sometimes it's just a better team. And I just think Philly overall that they're just, if we went off a checklist, like this position, this position, this position, like we would be checking the Eagles almost on every single one of them.
True.
And the ones that even the Rams probably do win in, like the receiver, it's like, it's pretty close, man. Like Smith and Brown versus Kupp and
Puka, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say that too, but I was like, it's almost a wash. Or I would probably give it to the Eagles in all honesty.
I was gonna say I might give it to the Eagles. I really love Smith.
I think Kupp's kind of finally fallen off that age hill. He just hasn't been great the second half of the season. He's still out there running, demanding coverage, and he'll get a catch or two, but he's not what he was 2 years ago when he just absolutely dominated. Injuries and age it gets everybody at some point. But yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's a great quarterback for the Eagles. I mean, the Eagle, it's kind of like you're saying what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. I think the Eagles have kind of designed their offense to work with their quarterback. Really good O line, really good running back, and you give your quarterback time to scramble and find holes and get chunk plays and get that tush push that he's extremely good at. He's great on that team. You try to run a different kind of offense with him, I don't think he'd be that good, but he's good
He
for
does need a
yeah
specific offense to work, and like that offense corner I went over the Colts. That's what a lot of people contribute to, like maybe not why he hasn't been as good since that guy left. I mean, that was only his
sure
1 year, but that's why a lot of people liked Anthony Richardson so much because like they're thinking, oh, this could be like a similar thing, but with like maybe Jalen Hurts plus is what he ends up becoming. But he clearly hasn't gotten to that point yet. So yeah, very, very interesting dynamic with that. I would agree that they do that with their offense. They really do build it around Hurts. And I think I've come to terms a little bit more with Hurts maybe just not being that good, kind of what you've been saying. I do think he's showing again, I just don't think he's gotten better. It's like he's kind of just been the same, and
yeah
like you just expect these guys to get better every year. It's kind of like what kind of plagued Stroud this year for me. Is like he hasn't been bad, but he's just hasn't gotten really better, and you just expect it from a second year player. Same thing with Hurts. This is like his third year starting. You just expect more.
third or fourth year. Yeah, Hurts been around for a while now.
Couple years, yeah. I'm curious if it's 3 or 4. He was a backup for like a year or two, and then he had like a couple games in there before he got the starter nod, like the next year, I think. They had Wentz before, right? They drafted him. Yeah, they had Wentz when they drafted him. So like they had Wentz, and then he replaced Wentz near the end of the year.
Uh, he, yeah, is that what happened? Was he not the starter right away? He might not have been.
No, he wasn't because he was drafted by. They
He
had
came out
Wentz,
the
and
same
everyone was
time
like
as
shocked.
he
No
came in
one,
the NFL the same year as Tua did. I know
yeah,
they were on the same team.
everyone was shocked when the Eagles took him because Wentz was like only like a year removed from his. Did he get MVP or he got really close to winning MVP? I think he got injured when he should have probably won the MVP.
He
And
played, yeah, didn't he play really well? But then he got hurt, and then Nick Foles won the Super Bowl for him.
yeah, I think that was like a year or two after they
And
drafted
Wentz
Hurts.
came back, and then yeah, he wasn't that good anymore.
Yeah, still everyone was shocked, and it ended up working out for him.
Yeah. All right, now we got one more match. We got the Commanders versus the Lions. So the last NFC North team standing had 3 make the playoffs, and 2 got bounced in the first round.
It's the only one that's beat all the other ones in the NFC North too.
The only one that didn't get bounced was the one that didn't have to play. So it's good fortune. But yeah, I mean the Lions are clearly the favorites in this game. I mean you got the number 1 seed versus the number 6 seed. Doesn't get much more favorable than that. Although it's Chiefs Texans, that's the same thing. Oh no, Texans were the 4 seed because they won their division.
Yeah, they won their division. So yeah, they'd have been the 4th. Yep.
So I mean similar, but yeah, I mean the Lions, man, they've been pretty dominant this year. Lost a couple games, and they lost one to the Bills and one to the Tampa Bay.
Bucks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean the Commanders just beat the Bucks though, so the Commanders are capable. I would not be writing them off. I mean, Jayden Reed, like I said, like we both said before, he looks like he might be the next superstar coming into the NFL. He's had an extremely impressive rookie season. And last week, first playoff game, he did not seem to be phased. He came out, played an incredibly good game that was close the entire way. So it's not like they got some big advantage and he got the coast. I mean, the dude had to keep playing and keep playing well the entire way through, and he did. So, yeah, this isn't going to be an easy matchup for you all. You're definitely favored, but I'll take the Commanders just to keep it contrarian since we've done it the whole time. And
yeah, we literally picked the opposite.
I prefer to root against the Lions when given the chance. So,
hey, like I said, if you're a fan, you're a fan. You do what makes sense for you. So if you want to root against the Lions, I mean, I do the same thing against the Packers.
Yeah.
But yeah. I was kind of getting carried away. I wasn't trying to be too cocky when talking about the Lions versus Commanders before. I was like trying to stop myself because I want to be like, fun for the show and everything too. But when it comes down to it, yeah, I don't really think this is like a pushover game. Like I don't think the Lions are just going to come here and just dominate the Commanders, but I do think this is kind of a juggernaut of a team versus like, just a pretty good team. I do think the Lions should be able to win this one, hopefully comfortably. Daniels could get hot. And honestly, those are the type of quarterbacks that make the upsets, right? Those guys that have that extra element to them. So like you can't just rule out like, oh, he's a rookie, maybe the will get too big. He's gonna have to score too many points. But no, it's like, dude, he could just break our whole defense. Like he's got that ability with that running. So there's definitely some concern as a Lions fan just going into it. But yeah, I don't know how it could have shook out. I'm kind of happy we didn't have to play against the Rams. I'd have been a little bit more concerned playing against the Rams with Stafford than Daniels. So it's hard to go against the Lions. I think they're just gonna. I think this is probably I feel like this might be the biggest lopsided game of the week. I think the Lions might come out and just kind of dominate because I just don't know if the Commanders have the defense to slow down the Lions. Like you need to have like a pretty respectable defense to prevent the Lions from scoring 30 points. I just don't think they're going to be able to hold us off of the 30-point marker, and I think the Lions will make enough plays to keep the Commanders and Daniels under 30. It's that simple for me. So that's gonna be a win. Hopefully, getting a championship game against the. I don't know who would rather play against. Honestly,
I mean, I'm curious. As far as all the NFC teams, the Commanders probably had to be your most preferable matchup.
I'm saying for like next week, like I don't know who I'd even want to play against. If like we win this week and like the next week, I'm trying to be worried about that right now anyway. But like,
yeah, that's true.
The Rams or Eagles, just kind of thinking like what would be the matchup.
I mean, I'd much rather play the Eagles currently, but if the Eagles come out and beat the Rams, that changes my view on the Eagles a little bit too.
Exactly, maybe especially if they come out with an dominant defensive effort, because like they just smothered you. So maybe it just proves that maybe the Packers weren't just that bad. The Eagles defense might just be that good type situation. Yeah, that'd be concerning, especially after how Stafford just lit up the Vikings defense, which is a pretty good unit in their own right.
But yeah, I mean, I do agree with your point of the command. Yeah, I don't know how the Commanders stop your offense. I mean, it's kind of, you guys will probably score almost every time you get the ball. The only way they're gonna have to bank on something. Either Jared Goff fucks up and throws a pick, or maybe like you guys go for it on a couple force and they make the big stop that they need. But yeah, it's going to be very difficult for them to slow your offense down. But their offense can keep up, I do believe. So they get a couple good defensive showings, just a few big plays at the right time, and they got a shot at this one.
Honestly, I think you just hit on it, and you kind of almost said it like passing by. So like I want to go back to it, but you were mentioning how the Lions were. Shoot, what are you talking about? The fourth down. Oh, for like the fourth down situation. So thinking about how they approach the game. Why do I keep losing my train of thought on this now? I'm gonna say it. I did it earlier today too. Every time I have like a gummy and I get to this point, I lose my train of thought. I've been trying to take next year. I'm probably just gonna do it without taking gummies. But yeah, no, I completely lost my train. You said something I was going to hit back on. It was actually something pretty good, but I just ruined that segment a little bit.
I was just saying they just did one or two big performances on the key plays, like a fourth down stop or two, because they'll get a couple shots at it. I'm venturing to guess probably 3 or 4 shots at stopping you on fourth down. That's all they need.
So that's what helped me with it, is like the fourth down standpoint with how Dan Campbell is so aggressive. Like he's almost like the element that could actually cost a team with this much. Like if you think the Lions are the juggernaut and you think like, the Commanders like, 2 tiers below, like they're kind of coming in, they're heavy underdogs. The type of games that those teams win is generally when something stupid happens from the coach. And we've mentioned it before. We talked about Dan Campbell's aggressiveness, and you mentioned how like if he just has a couple stops, like that is the way to win this game for them. Like that to me is like, simply put, like it's just they got to catch Dan Campbell getting too aggressive in the moment, make a big play off of it, and then maybe they take what was maybe going to be a 21-point difference. Like the Lions are going to go and score a touchdown. They stop him on fourth. Daniels throws a big pass to McLaurin, gets down into the red zone. They run it in, a couple plays later, and now it's a 7-point game. And then the Lions make like a 3-and-out, and then it's like, okay, the Commanders come back. To me, that's how it would be. I think the Lions will come out, and then like they just got to not make those type of errors. Like talent-wise, they should outclass them. But yeah, those are the errors that change the games, and maybe that is the concern about Dan Campbell right there. Maybe that's what we see. That's when all that talk would come up if that happened.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the case, but I just got nightmares when he said that. I just thinking like,
I do hope that's not the case, but yeah, you never know. It's the playoffs. I mean, all these teams are good. We got our picks. You took a pretty contrarian pick. You took Texans over Chiefs. I took a pretty contrarian one, taking the Commanders over the Lions.
Those are the two big underdogs, right? That's the
Yeah.
argument. Do either of those underdogs have a shot at winning? I mean, that's how probably most people are looking at those two games.
And then Ravens Bills. You took the Ravens. I took the Bills. That one, like I said, that one was a coin flip for me. I just couldn't decide. I'm very excited for that game though.
Opposite every game.
Yep,
right?
We took all opposites, and then Eagles Rams. You took the Eagles. I took the Rams. So we've got live bets. Hopefully, we don't both go 2-2. Because we'll be tied and we'll have to figure something else out.
That'd be interesting. I mean, it's kind of like nice that we all pick different, but it's like it might make it really complicated. Well,
you almost want an odd number of different picks, not an even number. So that way someone would have to win. But
we had two was agreed on two of them. Yeah, it would work.
That's what we got. I mean, I don't know. We'll flip a coin. We'll figure something out to do a shot next week if it's a tie. But yeah, that's really about all we had to talk about. Obviously, no fantasy, anything going on. Tiff's been paid, Lee's been paid, Carson's I haven't seen you yet, so I'll pay you your third place money next time I see you. Tiff, I do still need to get your name slapped on the trophy and pass that over, but that's really about it. Just playoff talk for the next couple weeks here.
You get to get excited for that knighting, the first knighting though.
Yeah, that's I'm trying not to think about it until putting fantasy out of my mind until August.
This is a fantasy
July.
Show, you know.
Yeah.
The fantasy of being knighted by the Doc Johnson.
I'll be reminded of it when I get back into fantasy football stuff next July or whenever I start looking at this.
You can get knighted in a Barry. I don't know if I want to give you a Barry Sanders jersey for that. Though. maybe you can have the Hawkinson jersey. The Sanders jersey, I don't want to be seeing that thing touching the Barry Sanders jersey.
Yeah. Well, I'm wearing a Lions jersey. I'll just draft all Lions next year. Win the league easily.
Probably could have won many fantasy leagues with the Lions this year. Like 2 top 10 running backs, top 10 receiver, top 25 receiver. Guessing Goff was probably top 10 as a quarterback. Defense was probably top 10 too. Yeah, I think you'd probably have a really good team if you played all Lions. There's those couple teams. I think the Patriots when they went undefeated were ridiculous. Their team outscored the average fantasy team by 30 points or something a week.
Probably.
They were nuts that year because they had 2 good running backs as well. One was a scat back that just got a bunch of receptions, and the other one was it was Lamar Mooney or something. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I mean they had. You talking their early dynasty or their late dynasty?
I wonder they went undefeated when they had Randy Moss and then they lost to the Giants. Yeah. That was that. I remember Mooney because he's from Minnesota was the running back, and then they had that one scat back. He was pretty good. Tom Brady. Then I think there was Wes Welker, Randy Moss, and then I think they had another good receiver too. And then their defense was top 5 on the year.
Yeah,
so they had an insane year that year for fantasy.
The Lions. Are you guys getting your other running back back? Is he back this week?
Yeah, Montgomery had a full practice today. He's healthy. Okay. Even after the Lions won.
Yeah, I knew that was the plan, but I didn't follow up and see if he was progressing as he wanted to.
Yeah. No, he was doing good. They knew he could have played this week if they would have played. They slapped him on the back, or Dan Campbell did it when they had their win in the locker room. Because of the slaps, Montgomery in the back is "Hey, you get one more week of rest, buddy," or something like that. Because they knew he could play, but it's good for him to probably get in there a week. So
yeah.
No, they expected him to play the whole time. So
okay,
glad he's back. It said it kind of. I think it limits our offense. It's kind of weird. I think we're better in certain situations when he plays more, just because we have that goal line back. But I think the explosiveness of the offense gets taken away. I think we're almost better just featuring Gibbs because he can just make every play a touchdown. Where Montgomery's he can grind out tough yards, but just
but
not in the same stratosphere.
Who do you want more when you're going for it on 4th and 1? I feel like you'd want Montgomery in there.
And the thing is for Montgomery too is he's an exceptional pass blocker. So Gibbs is getting better in that area, but that is a really important thing to have, and we haven't had Montgomery back there lately, and I think that's also attributed to I think Goff getting a couple more sacks on him the last couple weeks. So yeah, I think when you're looking at maybe the non flashy stuff that players do, I think he's definitely better than Gibbs in those areas, and that's important.
Yeah. Well, good luck to you this week. I'm rooting against you, but I wish you no ill will. But
For
yeah,
sure.
so someone, my mom texted me was like, "Oh, I guess we got to root for the Lions now, huh?" I'm like, "No, absolutely not. It's never gonna happen."
Well, I'm glad I can still make you hate the Lions. It's kind of been
Yeah.
funny. I don't know how much
I
you've
mean,
been
like,
like.
what as a Lions fan, did you ever root for the Packers when you were out of the playoffs, or did you just like, no, fuck the
I've rooted
Packers?
for
I
the
hope they
Packers
lose every
once
game.
my whole entire life, and it was a game that was marketed as Favre's last game in Lambeau, but he ended up coming back like the next year. So like everyone kind of thought he was
Uh,
gonna be retired, and he ended up staying 1 more year. And you guys played against the Vikings. I was with Adam Hoschbach, and he got tickets from his mom because I think it was kind of like a bad year for you guys. I don't think I'm
okay.
not sure if you're in the playoffs or not, but it was definitely like a year where it was just like, okay, so they're playing against the Vikings, and we were watching that, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. It's pouring rain. It was like the worst game I've ever been to for elements. It was just miserable to be in the stands. Like, I'm not just gonna sit here miserable watching two teams I hate. I'm just gonna cheer with the home crowd. So I just got into it. Even Adam wasn't even cheering. I was because it was like it was just miserable. I'm just sitting there jumping. My pants are falling down. It's just soaked. You guys lost. Do you remember Fred Smoot? You've heard of
No.
him? Okay, so story about him. Adam and I used to always play Madden. That's one of the things we always bonded over was Madden. We'd always start seasons all the time, and we always come up with nicknames for players. So like Alan Faneca was Fanny Pack. I don't even know why. We just had stupid names for him. Well, Fred Smoot was known for bringing some kind of like sex stuff on an airplane, got like arrested, and like there was this whole like party on a yacht or something. It was like a whole story behind it back then, like it was in the media. It was before like there's social media and stuff. But
Get
we
Packer.
always call him sex party. So we were like at the game, and like it was like an interception by Fred Smoot, a pick six, and he was like, "Oh my god!" He wasn't even mad because it was Fred Smoot. We're both screaming "sex party" like in the middle of this freaking stadium. We were both kind of excited about it, but yeah. Fred Smoot pick six, Brett Favre. I think that was like the difference in the game. Travaris Jackson. Do you remember that guy at all? He might have been
No.
before you really. So okay, Travaris
I didn't really
Jackson was
start
like,
watching until like the 2000, like the early 2000s.
and so this is probably right around the time you weren't really following. You wouldn't remember this guy, but he was like this. People probably thought he could be like Michael Vick if he hit on like everything. He was like super athletic. I think he was a former receiver, but he was just awful. And like he was the actual quarterback for the game. It was just terrible. Like it was some of the worst play I've ever seen. Like he didn't deserve to be on NFL field. So I don't know how you guys lost them, but it was like a really weird game. It was like 13-6 or something. It was some stupid score that you'll never see. Miserable game, but fun memory.
Yeah. So you rooted for him once. I'll find a time to root for the Lions at some point, but
It happens.
it
You
won't be
find
this
you
year.
find a reason.
I'm still, yeah. It won't be soon. I don't like them being the best in our division.
Oh, we're getting hated so much now.
It's
Like we
not
go on
enjoyable.
the NFL
But
North,
you're getting hated by NFC teams. I think you're kind of a fan favorite amongst
against across the whole
NFL
NFC
fans
North.
in
But,
general.
I mean, even like back in the day, we were like the lovable like
Yeah.
team in the NFC North. Everyone was just like, "Oh, it's just the Lions. You're so cute." And then as soon as we become good, it's like, "Oh, fuck those guys. They're the worst."
Yeah,
Like they're so
exactly.
annoying. It's like, come on, we get like at least like another year of this, and then we can start to understand like, okay, we're being annoying. Like we get that right for a little bit. We don't know what we're doing. We've never been here before. It's kind of those things. Act like you've been there. Well, we haven't been there yet. We're still learning. So,
All right. Well, yeah, I'll wish you luck. Any other parting words for the people?
I mean, if people are listening to this point, awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty long.
This is kind of like just us having some fun banter back and forth. Obviously, the fantasy season's over, so I do really appreciate it. I mean, this is all for fun, but we always want to make it better. So, again, as the year ends and we start to kind of look back, give us some tips on things you might want us to change or do, especially with the fantasy side of it. If there's anything that we can do to make the show better so people do actually pay attention to the whole thing. I know one of the complaints is always like length, but a lot of this is just having fun talking back and forth. So I don't think that'll ever be cut down to like something like a normal
especially
podcast.
at this point.
Yeah, because it's so casual. This isn't meant to be like something we're trying to sell to somebody. So, but it all matters. So if you're still listening, you got any tips, send it in the chat that we have or text group, whatever. Give us some advice if there's anything we can do for next year. My goal is really to keep growing this and make this the best experience we can for the league.
Yeah, we'll do a couple more episodes yet for the rest of the playoffs. We'll probably do a couple other ones in the off season. I'll text you, I guess. We could probably do one like after, the draft for sure. We could maybe do one after like the free agency period if anything big happens. Talk about who got shuffled around to what team.
Yeah, do like a kind of like after like the first week of free agency, just do like a kind of a follow up, like, oh, look at this big player. I mean, we're gonna have some big moves, and we're gonna have some trades too, probably from the prior months, just because teams kind of start trading after the end of the season. So we'll probably have like the T Higgins spot and things like that. So definitely be some good talking points there. Or we just wait till after the draft because it's only like a month.
Yeah,
free agency's March, so that'd be a pretty big gap. Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Or after free agency, like a week or so, and then the draft. I think those are two good talking points.
Yeah. Okay, sounds like a plan. So we'll end her there, and we'll end her as we always do with the Jameis Winston quote of the week. Bye, everybody.
Yeah! 180! What's that? Hut! Turbo, what's that? Somebody jump on sides, damn!